think it's safe to say that the cozy gaming genre is just getting better. And even though I made a video a couple of years ago all about my favorite cozy games, I think it's time for an update. You see, in the last couple of years, we've probably had more cozy games than we've ever had before. But this sea of brand new releases has also given us some of the best cozy games we've ever seen. And games which are so good that they deserve to be in my top 10 cozy games list. Now, I will say this list will not be including Animal Crossing New Horizons and Stardew Valley. And don't worry, I'm not leaving them out because I don't think they deserve to be on this list. I'm leaving them out because I think most of us have probably already played them before and know just how incredible they are. You see, for me, Animal Crossing New Horizons is my true comfort game. And I'm currently sitting at well over 2,000 hours in Animal Crossing New Horizons so far. And I've even started a brand new island on my Nintendo Switch too, so I'm racking up even more hours now and still absolutely loving it. Now, I don't really think I need to say too much about Stardew Valley, and in fact, as of just recently, Stardew Valley took the #1 spot as the best rated game on Steam of all time. So clearly I'm among many who absolutely love it. Stardew Valley is effectively a genre defining game, because even though it wasn't by any means the first farming sim and was heavily inspired by the likes of Harvest Moon, it did, however, set a brand new standard as to what it means to be a farming sim game. And even though Stardew Valley was well reviewed when it first came out, it's the fact that Concerned Ape never gave up on it that has turned it into the best rated game of all time. But the reason I wanted to leave these two out is basically just to cheat. This list was already so hard to make, so I decided that everyone knows about these already, so they can go off to one side, and that gives me room to talk about even more cozy games that I love. And the first game on today's list is Ooblets. Now, this isn't a new game by any means, but it is a game that I keep on coming back to. Now, this did something that is honestly really difficult to do nowadays, and that is that it's a farming sim that stood out. Ooblets is such a fantastic mix of so many gameplay elements that I love. You see, the game starts off like a normal farming sim. You rock up to a brand new town and you're gifted a tiny home with a plot of land for you to farm on. But the thing is, this town isn't any ordinary town. You see, not only is it filled from head to toe with these adorable creatures called Ooblets, it's also got no internet. And of course, being the new person in town, it falls on you to try and fix it. And this will involve you not only exploring the town which you're in, but also traveling to all of the neighboring towns to figure out what's going on and to try and fix it. But this is not a task that you can do alone, and you'll need to rally up a team of Ooblets to help you by your side. But you see, the issue with Ooblets is that the developers made them far too cute, so no one would actually want to see them fight. So instead of settling their problems with fights, they settle their problems with dance battles. So this means whenever you have to take on an Ooblet in the wild, you'll have to use the cards in your deck to try and wear out the competitors' Ooblets before your Ooblets get tired. And as your Ooblets grow stronger, you'll get better cards in your deck so you can take on even stronger Ooblets. But my favorite thing by far is actually the way that you capture the Ooblets. You see, if you want to try and build your very own team of them, you'll first need to give them an offering. And this offering, most of the time, is food which you'll have to grow on your farm. Once you give the wild Ooblets the food, you're then free to dance battle them. And if you're successful, they basically poop out a little Ooblet seed, which you can then go and plant in your farm to grow your own Ooblet of the same type. And this means that this is a farming sim with a purpose, as not only will your farm get you money by selling some of your produce, but it's also incredibly useful for building up your Ooblet team. But there's way more fun to be had with the Ooblets than just battling. You see, the Ooblets can actually wind up helping you on your farm, and you can assign them to each of the different processing machines so they can make things while you're gone. But the other thing about Ooblets is they actually come in 3 different colors for each of the species. And that is the common color, the uncommon, and the gleamy, which is basically the equivalent of shiny hunting in Pokemon. So when you're not doing the main storyline, you can actually set off to not only capture every ooblet that there is, but also every color type. And that's why Ooblets is a game I keep on picking up. It's a lot of fun and it's very quirky, and it always puts a smile on my face. And even though the Switch version works pretty good, although it has some performance issues at times, it runs even better now on the Switch too. Next up, let's talk about Unpacking. Now, even though Unpacking first released in 2021, this has remained one of my top cozy games of all time ever since I first played it. And even in 2025, there is no game that's quite managed to capture the magic that is Unpacking. For this game is an absolute masterclass in how to tell a story without any words. Because in this, you get to learn about the entire life of a single woman just by unpacking her belongings out of boxes. And the story is told not only with the items that you unpack, but also the places which you unpack them to. And despite the game ultimately coming down to just moving objects from one place to another, this is a game that's made me smile, laugh, and even cry. And not only does this tell a beautiful story, it's also unbelievably satisfying, as some of the puzzle is just figuring out where each of the items belong, but the fact that the game's mechanics snaps items neatly into place allows you to stack them one on top of each other and find the perfect home for each of them makes the unpacking process unbelievably satisfying. And truly the worst part about Unpacking is the fact that I think it ended far too soon. I could have played this game for so many more hours and just hope that one day they come out with a sequel. The next game I want to talk about, which is equally as satisfying, is actually Dofromantic. Now this is a tile-based puzzle game where you place down hexagonal tiles, all in the hopes of making a beautiful landscape. And the entire goal of the game is to score as many points as possible by trying to match up as many tiles as you can. You see, each tile has 6 edges, and these edges could be anything from forest landscapes, farms, or even little towns. And the more edges you match with the correct landscapes, the more points you get. And bit by bit, you get to see the landscape grow. And one thing I really do like is the fact that as you place more tiles down, you actually get to unlock different types of tiles. That means that the next playthrough is ever so slightly different. But the best part is you can take this completely at your own pace. Because even though you can play this sort of competitively and try and get a higher score than you've ever gotten before, you can also just ignore the score altogether and just try and make a pretty landscape, which I'm going to be honest is the way I mostly play this. I personally find that I have 2 ways I like to play cozy games. Either I like to dive fully into them, and that's typically with cozy games with big stories, or I like to play cozy games while watching my favorite TV show or film. And that's where this game comes in. Now, I'm going to be honest, this was a highly contested spot for cozy games, as there were quite a few that could also have easily slotted in here. A good example of this is Power Wash Sim. This is another game that I love to play while watching things on the TV, and also Stitch as well. If you're a lover of something like Sudoku, I think Stitch would be fantastic, as this kind of scratches the same itch in your brain. But if you're truly looking to de-stress, I definitely recommend any of these. Another game which I love to play sat in front of the TV is Lodonauts. Now, not only is this incredibly satisfying like the likes of Unpacking, this kind of has a similar vibe to Power Wash Sim, as this sees you tasked with trying to clean up the ocean. And to do this, not only do you collect all of the trash which you see around you, but you also use your little laser gun to zap off all of the gunk from the corals. And you do all of this in the hopes of rehoming these adorable little creatures called Loddles. Now, as you swim around and collect trash that you find along the sea floor, you'll be able to recycle it and in turn use the recycled parts to upgrade your equipment. And this will allow you to unlock even bigger areas that need your help in being cleaned. Now, even though this whole game takes place under the water, this is not stressful, okay? This is not like the water temple in Ocarina of Time, and even though you do have an oxygen bar, it's so easy for you to go and refill, as all you need to do is clean up a few plants, and then they start producing oxygen bubbles, which when you float into, you get all of your oxygen back. And honestly, it's very hard to be stressed out in a game when you see these adorable creatures follow you everywhere. And this mixture of the gameplay being satisfying, cute, and fun just means that this is a wonderful game to play whenever I'm feeling stressed. Next up, let's talk about the latest addition to my top 10 list, and that is Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time. It's honestly like the developers just knew exactly what I needed and put it into a game, as this has all of your cozy game mechanics, a fantastic story, and so much more. Now, this is essentially labeled as a cozy RPG. As in this, you do need to grind for XP, much like a traditional RPG, but you don't just do it by fighting. As even though there are some combat elements to it, the majority of your level grinding will come from farming, crafting, fishing, and a lot more cozy mechanics. The thing I really like about Fantasy Life is that you can play this in so many different ways depending on your mood. Like, for example, if you want to dive into the story, you can just set out and do the main storyline quests. If you just want to mindlessly explore, then there's a whole open world area for you to go and run around. You can also just spend your time crafting and trying to level up each of your skills, or in this game they call it lives. You can also spend a lot of time terraforming and decorating the town. Or if you're feeling particularly adventurous, you can try and take on the dungeons either by yourself or with your friends. And even though I had an absolute blast with the main story, I feel like there is so much to play when the story finishes, which really sets this apart from other games that are very similar. But the thing that's really made this game go from being great to absolutely fantastic is the amount of love and care that has gone into the game after it's released. You see, not only have the developers been doing a ton of updates to improve the visuals and quality of life features, this will also be getting a free DLC later on in the year as well. And I honestly have never hit 50 hours in a game as fast as I did with Fantasy Life I. Now, it is worth mentioning that although the Switch port is okay, the game does look significantly better on other platforms, including the Switch 2. But so long as you're okay with a bit of combat in a cozy game, I think you're gonna absolutely love this one. Now let's go from one of the latest cozy games in my list to one of the originals. Let's talk about Spiritfarer. Spiritfarer is truly one of the greats. And even though this released nearly 5 years ago, it's still a game that's spoken about often by so many people. And that's because this is a game that's difficult to forget. For me personally, I know a game is truly special when I remember it and think about it often, even way past I've hit the credits. And Spiritfarer has joined a short list of games that have affected me like this, as this is a cozy management game all about saying goodbye. As this will see you play as Stella, a ferry master to the spirits. And it's your job to build a boat, explore the world, and befriend spirits before finally releasing them to move on to the other side. But before the spirit will willingly cross over, you need to help them with any of their unfinished business. And bit by bit, as you do each of the quests for them, you get to learn all about them, their family, and their lives, which makes the moment where they're finally ready to move on just so bittersweet. And the fact that this is truly such an emotional moment goes to show just how good the writing is. And I truly think this is a game that's almost impossible to play without shedding a tear, as you'll often be able to relate to it in ways you weren't even expecting and sometimes not even prepared for. But either way, if you're in a good place to tackle this, this is a game that has left a lasting effect on me. Next up, let's talk about Coffee Talk. Now, truthfully, I probably enjoyed Coffee Talk 2 a little bit more than I enjoyed Coffee Talk, but considering you have to play the first one to fully enjoy the second one, it just made sense to put Coffee Talk in this spot. Now, before I played Coffee Talk, I did not know that this genre of cozy game even existed. But ever since I first played it, I have been obsessed with all types of visual novels thanks to it. But still to this day, the Coffee Talk franchise remains one of the best. And just a side note, I cannot wait for the new game to release later this year. I am so excited that I might have to replay all of them, but let's get on to why I love them. You see, Coffee Talk might be a visual novel, but this is actually a game all about listening, as this sees you run a midnight cafe. And just as you might expect, not a lot of people are looking for coffee in the wee hours of the morning. But this gives you a really good chance to get to know each of your customers. You see, the game takes place in an alternative version of Seattle. And in this reality, humans are not the only people living in the city. And your customers can range between being elves, aliens, or of course humans. The thing I love about Coffee Talk is you get to learn all about the city that your coffee shop is in, not by going and exploring it yourself, but through the conversations that you have with each of your customers and the conversations they have with each other. And this was such a fun and interesting way to see a world be built. But there's far more to Coffee Talk than it just being a game where you listen to people's problems, as after all, you have an entire cafe to run. So it's your job to make whichever drink the customer fancies. The only problem is, the customer won't always know exactly what they want. So it's through not only your conversations with the customer, but also their conversations with other people that you need to start trying to piece together exactly what they might want. But do be warned that the coffee that you serve to your customers has the ability to change their fate. And this is a game with many different endings that is decided not by the dialogue options that you choose, but the drinks that you give your customers. And this means that Coffee Talk is a game that you can play multiple different times and get so much more out of it. The dialogue and certain things change when you're on your second or third playthrough. That means that for this price, you get so much out of it. And even though the first Coffee Talk does everything fantastically, the second game adds in a couple of new elements, not just new characters for you to meet, but also new gameplay styles where you'll have different objects that you can give the characters, as well as drinks, which kind of changes things up. That means that that one is, I think, a little bit better than the first, but both of them are fantastic. Another game with a fantastic story is Wildflowers. Now this is a particularly personal choice for me, as Wildflowers came at a time in my life where I think I needed it the most. Now Wildflowers starts off in a way you might not be expecting, as in this life sim, you actually don't create your own character. And instead you play as a girl named Tara, who not only found herself being dumped, but also let go from her job. And with nowhere else to turn, she decides to move in with her grandmother to help her out on her farm. And as someone who was going through a lot of the same things that Tara was going through at the time, this game truly stole my heart. Now I see a lot of people describe Wildflowers as a narrative farming sim, but truthfully, I think the farming sim elements, at least when you get into the game, are very minimal. And the focus is really on its story. You see, soon after Tara moves into this town, she discovers that not only is her grandmother a witch, but she is a witch too. So not only does Tara need to now learn how to farm, but also how to manage her witch abilities. Now the thing that makes Wildflowers truly stand out is the voice acting. And even though it might seem a little bit weird at first to be playing a live sim where you don't get to play as yourself, the fact that you do play as a set character means that Tara is fully voice acted along with every single one of the villagers. And this for me made me fall in love with the characters in a way I rarely experience, especially in farming sims. And I really love the fact that whenever an event happens in the town, you get to learn all about the characters by how they react to each of these events. And I found myself really loving some characters and really disliking others. Now, much like many games on this list, Wildflowers has been made even better by its huge amounts of free updates that it's had over the years. And this means that not only will you get a solid 50+ hours out of the main storyline, even when you finish that, there is so much for you to do. Now, as mentioned, this game has a lot of your classic farming sim elements to it. There's crops for you to tend to, magical animals for you to care for. There's also mining, fishing, and the ability to befriend and even marry some of the townspeople. But this is made all the better with a little bit of magic. And actually, you can wind up automating a lot of the farming farming sim stuff if you find yourself taken with the story or the side quests. I think the best way to describe my time with Wildflowers was I was truly unprepared for just how much the game's story was going to impact me. The game doesn't shy away from dealing with difficult topics, and it does it with such grace and such comfort. And as someone who went through a lot of the same things Tara did, I really appreciated how much care went into the story. This also runs fantastically on the Switch. I think it's incredible value for money given how much time you can spend with it, and it is always going to be a must-buy from me. Next up, let's talk about another new entry, and that is Moonstone Island. This is another game that came out last year and completely consumed me, as this is a creature collecting life sim. And this has a lot of elements that I wish was in the Pokemon franchise. As even though much like Pokemon, you're in a world filled with creatures that you can go and battle and collect, you also have your very own home, which you live in, townspeople, which you can get to know and romance, and even quests for you to complete for each of them. Now, the game begins with you leaving home for the first time as part of your alchemy training. And after you stumble into a town in need of an alchemist, you begin your brand new life. Now, the cool thing about this game is that it's procedurally generated with over 100 islands for you to explore. Each of them have different biomes and different creatures that inhabit them. And the best way to describe this gameplay is it's sort of a mesh between Stardew, Pokemon, and elements of old school Zelda. Because it's up to you with your team of spirits to start exploring all of the islands. But along your journey, you'll also find dungeons. And I really enjoyed these, as not only are there battle elements to them, there's also puzzling aspects. And then once you've finished exploring, you get to return home, where you can then craft items and even decorate. And one of my favorite parts about this is the fact that you don't just use the spirits you find just to fight, as you'll get the opportunity to craft a barn, which the spirits will then call their home, and you'll actually be able to feed the spirits and get items from them each and every day. And this, coupled with the fact that there's a day-night cycle, the ability to go into town and talk to different villagers, just makes this all feel a little bit more lively. This is another one of those games that's had a ton of free updates, including the most recent one, which just introduced evolutions. And all this love and care that's gone into it has taken it from being a fantastic game to one of the greats. The last game on today's list is the Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood. Now, as you're probably gathering from this, I love visual novels. And even though I was debating whether I wanted to feature another one in my top 10, I really truly couldn't leave this one out. And honestly, Tavern Talk nearly made it into this list as well. So I love this genre with my whole heart. In this, you play as a witch named Fortuna, who has the ability to tell the future with her tarot cards. But the game begins 200 years into her millennium-long exile. And after a moment of pure desperation, she makes a pact with a forbidden creature called a behemoth to try and regain her freedom. And thanks to the help of the behemoth, Fortuna is now able to rekindle her friendships with people she hasn't seen for centuries. And much like Coffee Talk, this has a branching story, but the decisions you make aren't in dialogue options, they're instead in the way in which you interpret the tarot cards that you read. And the best part is, you get to make these tarot cards yourself. Now, the story itself is incredible. It's all centered essentially around witch politics. And the decisions you make will not only affect yourself and your friends, but your entire witch coven. So not only is your fate on the line, but also the Cosmic Witch Society as a whole. And despite the fact that you never get to leave the comfort of your own asteroid, you get to learn all about the world, not only through your conversations with others, but also the flashbacks and memories that you have when you meet old friends. This is another game with so much replay value, and I love the fact that you don't always know how big a decision you're making till after you've made it. Sometimes I feel like whenever I play narrative games, I get really anxious about big decisions, but you don't always know the repercussions of your actions until it's essentially too late, meaning that I never really felt this pressure or anxiety about my choices. I just sort of let it happen. But overall, this is such a unique experience and I loved it from start to finish. That's it for my top 10 cozy games of all time. Leave yours in the comment section down below. I would love to hear them. And if you want to hear about some cozy games I've been playing recently, click this video here.